Welcome everyone to the first Shooting the Breeze of 2021. Hopefully 2021 is going to be a great year for us and for all our clients. Brokers at this moment are doing about 60% of all new mortgages that are being written. And that's why we'll be discussing the value that brokers can add in this session of Shooting the Breeze.
Yes, the mortgage broker share of the market has been steadily increasing over time. And one of the main reasons is competition, I believe. Now, if you look at the slide here, it shows the reduction of the profit margin banks had on home loans over the last 20 years. Now, mortgage brokers, they started in the early 80s, believe it or not. It really didn't become a profession till about the mid-2000s, and that's when we really started to gain a lot of ground and a lot of become a formidable competitor for the banks, which is probably why they don't really like us that much, because obviously they like bigger profit margins, and who doesn't? So thanks to competition, I suppose, and as you can see on this slide, there's a lot of banks and funders we have access to, and that's just to name a few up there. There's more than I could fit on the slide, really. So this choice out there obviously provides a very competitive platform and makes home loans sharper. If they were all to disappear overnight, it'd be horrific to think how the margins would then go back to normal and increase, and the lack of competition, not just around price either, it's around innovation of products and policy. You know, if you can't get a loan from the bank, there's always other avenues there from some of the second tier lenders.
Yes, Ray, I totally agree with what you're saying. I think the big thing is competition reduces prices, and in the case of mortgages, generally that can be interest rate reductions, cheaper interest rates, and the other thing with competition is there's a lot more policy options out there for people.
So one of the biggest changes for us as mortgage brokers this year from the start of 2021 was new legislation called BID, B-I-D, which stands for Best Interest Duty. Now, we've been doing that ever since we were brokers. That's just a natural thing for us to do, is to put our clients' best interest at heart. But the interesting thing is how this differentiates us more from the banks is the banks aren't governed by this. What that means in simple terms is they do not have to, by law, have your best interest at heart. And the reason is they're a one product seller. They can't really recommend you go somewhere else for a loan if they recognise there's a better product out there with someone else. Whereas it's a broker's job to do that very thing.
Just to reiterate what you said there, Ray, I think it's a very critically important point in that legislation really gives brokers the advantage over someone going to a bank. Apart from many other advantages of going to a broker, this is now a case where we can analyse the client and make the best decision for them based on a choice of multiple lenders with multiple products. While if the person walks into Bank A can only offer them Bank A's products. Yeah. They're not going to go and say, well, go to Bank B next door. They're not going to do that. So by definition, it's not necessarily the best product for the client.
If you go to Bank A, who you bank with at the moment, they're not legally obliged to give you any other offers except their own offers. As a broker now, we are legally obligated to give you options and the best options to suit your requirements. So we could give you 4 or 5 options and the decision still comes back to you. So ultimately you could be getting a better product and a more competitive interest rate, or better features in the loan by using a broker. The banks have no loyalty to their clients. I'll give you an example. You could be with one bank for 10 years, you've never missed a loan repayment, you've just paid on time every month. Have you ever got any rebates, cash rebates or discounts from that bank? No. If you were a new customer refinanced into that bank, they would happily give you a $3,000 cash rebate. So they're happy to...
And a better rate.
And a better rate.
Yeah.
So they're happy to reward a new client, but with a cash rebate, actually some of the rebates were up to $4,000 at one stage, and a competitive rate. Existing clients are paying for the bank to win new clients. 100%. And just on that, another advantage of using a broker is policy. What I mean by that is if you go to one bank, your personal situation mightn't meet the bank's lending policy, whether it's on income or servicing. So they could knock you back. With a broker, once we find out your individual circumstances, we're experts in policy with all the banks, and we can find a lender that will suit your specific requirements. We see a lot of clients who've been knocked back by banks for no other reason than the bank they went to. Their circumstances did not suit that bank's policy, and we can straight away just say, well, we've got a few potential options for you.
Quite often I've had people referred to me that have been declined by the bank, and they've actually given up straight away. Don't give up, guys. If you have been knocked back by a bank, and you haven't seen a good broker yet, please reach out. There's so many options. The thing with brokers, what's very different to going into your bank, is we do all the grunt work before we send the application to a lender. So we'll do credit checks for you. Check your credit score, make sure there's nothing that will affect your ability to get a loan with a certain bank. And there are banks there that don't care about your credit score. They don't even care about past arrears on your home loan that show up, because the new credit reporting, it will show that information for up to 18 months. I've just done a loan for somebody that got knocked back by 2 banks because of past arrears, and I found them a lender with a rate with a 2 in front of it, not an expensive rate, who are happy to take it on, don't look at the credit scoring, they don't look at those past arrears. So once again, there's so much policy, so many policy options out there, so many lenders that are very different to the majors in the way that they credit score, don't credit score. So if you've been knocked back, contact a mortgage broker, get them to have a look at your scenario and see if they can help you out.
We've talked quite a bit about the value that brokers can bring, and a lot of that value is to do with quantifiable value, but there's also a lot of value that's not necessarily quantifiable, and that's to do with the value we can bring in terms of relieving the pressure that a client would have in terms of applying for a loan. We absorb that pressure. We communicate with the lender on behalf of the borrower. If there are questions to be answered, we cover those. So that's a real value that brokers can add, making the whole process just more or easier and less stressful than it would be otherwise.
Okay, thanks, Eddie. Just to finish off, we did have only one question come in today from Stacey at Rabina. Thanks, Stacey. It was a really good question. She was asking, is it worthwhile getting pre-approved in the current market? I still believe it is, even though I've had a few clients had theirs expire. So they only last 90 days. Some lenders will extend them with updated pay slips, and some will just withdraw the deal. And the reason they have expired is because the market's been a little bit difficult to buy at the moment. But it certainly does give you an advantage, I believe. A lot of agents, they don't even want to talk to you if you haven't got a pre-approval already, because they don't want to go to the trouble of doing contracts and everything and then having them fall over on finance. The other advantage is it gives you a little bit more confidence when you're going shopping. If you know you've been pre-approved to buy a house for $650, at least you're confident when you're making that offer, and that's one less thing you've got to stress about, is that you know you're approved for that. So I still think it's worthwhile. Definitely gives you a bit more bargaining power when you are buying. All right, guys. Thanks again for joining us for our first episode of 2021. Thanks, Eghart and Paul. Thank you. All the best, and we'll talk to you next month. Obviously, disclaimer, this is not personal financial advice, just general in nature. If you want anything detailed, feel free to contact our office and we can give you a personalised assessment.